Ladies and gentlemen, we are live with the one and only Tyriel. I can't believe, Tyriel, it's been this long since we're in a call together. I was saying that before.
Yeah, seriously, man. I mean, you and I have been chatting in the DMs and on Twitter for I feel like a year and a half, 2 years now, and
Yeah.
finally connecting, man. So it's awesome to finally jump on a call.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. I mean, for those that are not familiar with Tyriel, I mean, you've been posting a lot and I'm sure a ton of people, at least on the Kalshi side or mention side, are very familiar. But you've gone on a pretty generational run in the last 3 months. Closing in on 100K. I think you're at 99.5K right now. So
Yeah,
it might be
yeah,
tonight.
yeah. We're super close, man. If I can, do well on this Gavin Newsom market and a couple of these sports ones, we'll break it. But yeah, man, it's been a crazy, few months. I've been into prediction markets, for a year and a half, 2 years now. Was doing a lot of mentions on Poly Market leading into the election. Loved doing the rallies. That was kind of like my bread and butter
Yeah. I
back then.
uh-huh.
And then, yeah, man, just like the past few months, Kalshi has like really invested heavily in the mentions category. They hired full-time, staff to
Yeah.
create markets and like really like promote the liquidity on there. I don't know if they're
Hmm.
doing it through Kalshi trading or just whoever, right? But they're
Right.
crushing it on liquidity. They've got a great user base. They understand distribution. Like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm super impressed with all these partnerships they keep nailing with Coinbase and Phantom and all this stuff. So, yeah, man, Kalshi's been awesome. I love that platform. It's been great.
Yeah, for mentions, it's been parabolic lately, which is just crazy. I mean, I would made a post the other day, but it's you'll resonate having been in the space for a while. But it's 6 months ago, it feels like I'd be happy if we got a Caroline Levitt speech once a week or something, and maybe a one-off Trump thing. But it was kind of like a weekly thing you'd get, mentions. I'm in a group with a lot of the top kind of maybe five or so pretty solid mentions traders, and back then we were oh, if I could make 100K a year on mentions, that'd be. And now as we were all talking about 2026, just with the crazy volume of mentions, they're all 500K this year, because
Yeah.
it's now it's a legitimate category, just with the absolute volume they're doing, the frequency, the numbers, so yeah, I mean, it's explosive, what's happened to mentions on Kalshi in the last few months.
Yeah, dude. It went from being a thing where it's like you're saying it was, small time where I was going, okay, this is like some fun little side money that you're making to where it becomes like a really serious
Yeah.
interest, because you're making 30, 50K a month,
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
mentions. It's like, okay, I'm gonna dedicate a lot more time to what I'm doing here. And just looking at the future, where we're going with prediction market growth and the
Mhm.
expanded distribution, I'm just feeling that it's a great space to lock into.
Yeah.
Mentions is like very relatable to the average person, right? Because you can go
Yeah.
in there and say, I like Trump or I like Obama, right? And I'm gonna
Mhm.
just say, okay, is he gonna, say Sleepy Joe today, right?
Yeah.
Or is he gonna talk about like healthcare or whatever? And it's just very easily relatable. You kind of have the vibes of it that,
Yeah.
kind of it's almost like sports in that sense, right? Where it's very relatable to the common guy. It's
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
there's like the vibes element for the average person who's into them.
100%. Yeah. And it's I think mentions, clearly they're great for content, obviously. They're just very fun markets, like you're saying, to where it's they'll attract a user that's just wanting to kind of have fun as well. So it presents the opportunity to where if you're a very serious participant, combing through transcripts, getting data, all that stuff, it's uh can obviously be a lot of opportunities. I'm curious, your thoughts, because what I start to feel sometimes is with how big it's getting, on both mentions, and then also I've recently gone into sports, there are all these partnerships. How long do you think this age lasts? Do you ever think about that, or get? I mean, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, like how long is
Feel
like the
your edge.
Goldilocks period here?
Yeah.
Like how long does the golden age last? It's so like when you think about it, like the most attractive markets, right, to like big money are going to be these like economic markets, right? So like Fed rates, you talk about like elections, things that have like really high volume. There's like lots of data out there, so you can really easily model it, right?
Mhm.
The farther you get towards the fringes, right, the harder it's going to be for people to develop really good models and market make and
Yes.
really throw lots of liquidity in there, right? So you think about stuff like mentions. You're on the skirts in
Right.
mentions, right?
Yeah.
You talk about like culture markets, you're kind of just in the weeds
Yeah.
on that, right? Versus something, again, like I'm talking about Fed rates. It's like if you look at the volume on that, how high that volume is, it's already incredibly efficient. You're trading
Yes.
against
Yes.
like Wall Street level modeling people, right?
Right. Right.
Versus mentions, how many folks really out there in the mentions community have like really good data models on
Yeah.
like NFL or really good data models on Trump, right? It's
Yeah.
probably a handful, less than 50 for sure,
Right. Yeah.
so you're competing against a smaller pool, right? And that's really, really interesting. And that's another reason I like it, is because again, when you think about like where newcomers are going to be and like where is it liquidity going to go to, it's things that people can relate to. So culture, mentions,
Yeah.
sports, those are like really relatable kinds of markets for folks. And that's why I see the growth potential here. So I've really focused in on the edge here, versus like in the past when I started trading, prediction markets, I was like trying to do like geopolitics sometimes too,
Yeah.
or like,
Yeah.
and
And like
I was just,
spreading.
yeah,
Mhm.
going out of my lane. Like, I'm not like an expert on, Ukraine Russia relations, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So like understanding just, where your edge is and
Yeah,
staying
I
there.
I think that's a really important point, and it's like because I mean the advice you'll hear from like myself, from everyone whenever they're ready this is like pick a niche, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't be an expert in like every single category. But then also it's like combine that as well with like be humble of like,
Yeah.
just knowing because even within mentions, for example, like I mostly play Trump and I'll play announcer markets, but like I'm not gonna necessarily play like this NVIDIA keynote that just happened. Like, I didn't have any good data on it. I didn't
Yeah.
play it, and people are
Yeah.
asking, "Well, what do you think about?" So it's just important to, yeah, pick a niche and then just being humble of like knowing where your spots are. Like, if I don't feel like I have an edge here, and I think that's also been something that I've had to like learn more and more with, groupthink as well, to where if all these people are saying something's a bond, I've gotten burned a few times just kind of tailing a few people.
Yeah.
I think I've lost like 10K this year on quote unquote bonds, all at like 90. And I'm like, why did I
Yeah.
just so just focusing on what you know and not, spreading too thin, I guess.
Yeah, I'm a big zig when they zag guy, like when I
Yeah.
see something priced at like 97 cents going into an event, my first like thought process isn't like, oh, this is a lock. I'm going like, why the fuck is this at 97 cents? And
Yeah.
then I try to like kind of like think back, like, well, is
Yeah.
it really justified? Right. And
Are you
like
talking about safety here?
safety, dunk, those are kind of like those are my lanes, dude. And like, today, right, there was a Mom Donnie presser, and I didn't
Yeah.
really have a lot of time. I jumped on and started trading it like literally as it started. So I was just like taking like wherever I could.
Yeah.
I saw like safe is like a really like highly priced thing, and I see him with the governor and like three other officials, and I'm going like, how long is this guy actually going to talk here? Like
Yeah.
this can't be very long. So like everything valued so high, and yes, I'm going like, but like really,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
had to buy traffic, yes, because it said traffic on the fucking sign that he was like
Yeah.
standing in
Yeah.
front of, you know what I mean? But you get the point, right? Is it's kind of like thinking like both sides of something. And I think something folks kind of trap people fall into is like chasing that consensus thought, like you said, and then
Yeah.
you end up paying this like consensus premium on
Mhm.
that as well, right? Because everybody else is also aping into that trade with you because
Yeah.
it's consensus, right? So like the price just by nature becomes like even higher, right?
Yeah. And it's funny in that regard that it's like I feel like as more and more sharps and like people focusing on mentions are popping up, I like that discussion on like consensus. It's like on one angle, mentions are getting somewhat sharper in the sense that like people are tailing consensus. So to the extent of like if they post something on roll call that says close press, now people
Yes.
are going that extra step to at least check roll call. But they're kind of
Yeah.
the offset of that is they're usually overvaluing a lot of the times, like buying nose because it says close press just on roll call. Things like that, or like on some of the Trump speeches this year. There's been a lot of them where if they're recurring annual speeches that he gives,
Yeah.
people will now do the data to look at his first term speeches and they'll say, oh, this isn't going to happen or XYZ. But then they're again like the offset of that is they're going to over index sometimes to like
Yeah.
the first term. So they're getting sharper in the sense that people are doing research, but also the flip side of that is
they overvalue historical data in a lot of like instances, right? So like current events always will like circumvent whatever the past was, right? So like a great example was like the this Meet the Press market that happened on Sunday morning, right? So like Meet the Press releases a promo reel Friday. It talks about healthcare and Marjorie, Taylor Greene leaving Congress, etc. Saturday, Venezuela, it was overnight. Venezuela gets bombed. We were in the holidays. All right. I was drinking a lot, having a good time. So my, chronology or dates here are a little off. You get what I'm saying here. But essentially, the reel was posted before the Venezuela events happened. They had no knowledge of the event when they posted the reel. Those events change the content of the interview, right? Because that supersedes anything else that's happening in the world right now.
Right.
So like all of those things all of a sudden became a lot more valuable in this market. But the market was like very undervaluing them, right? Because they were going off of whatever this reel was saying. So that's kind of like just current events always are like the most important thing. And one thing I've learned too is like speakers change over time too, right? Like this term Trump is far more unhinged than last term. Like Trump just doesn't
completely like.
Yeah. I mean, dude, we're at a commencement speech and it turns into a rally. We're at the turkey pardoning. Even the turkey pardoning got unhinged. Like, how do you screw up a turkey pardoning? But like, like it's wild. So I think you got to like really be conscious of how speakers evolve over time.
Yeah, I guess like a lot of people that I talk to in mentions, it's like a balance usually of like they'll say vibes versus transcripts, right? Like, and kind of so you have the data piece there versus the vibes, kind of current events. I guess like where do you feel like you fall in that mix between using vibes, current events, and also like just historical data?
Yeah, so Trump is more vibes heavy. It's like 30% data, 70% vibes, right? It's way more on a whim. So certain politicians are more like formulaic than others, right? So like, for example, Kamala was like extremely formulaic, right? Like she was incredibly easy to predict. Like Newsom's becoming a little bit more like Trumpish in the sense of like he's a little bit more all over the place now. But like, I think the best example of this, of like a transcript heavy one, would be earnings calls, right? Those are like, those are really data heavy. That's probably like 70% data, 30% current events. So the flip opposite. Then you have other guys who are in the middle, right? NFL announcers are really interesting because it's not only like historical data relevant, but it's also like location relevant, it's team relevant, right? And that's where like I was loving Fumble because like with certain teams, it was plus EV to take Fumble no because they took care of the football, right? And even if they did fumble the football, some announcers would like to say, oh, the other team took it away, or they just whatever, right? There was variations of the word fumble. So I really liked Fumble no, and I'm sad it's gone, but like there's just kind of different formulas that you have to take into account for like all these different formats. And that's part of why I think Polymarket had like some sort of like the death of mentions on there, because it was the same speakers, the same strikes. There was no freshness. That the game got solved, right? And Kalshi's done a good job of having so many different types of formats and speakers that nothing's solved yet, right? And as long as they keep a good rotation going in, they keep varying the strikes. The game won't be solved.
And that's what I was saying. Like on the variations of the strikes, a lot of people were upset. But like I was saying, is like this is good for the market. It's like it's gonna get boring if you have all the same strikes, and then it's just like they're priced pretty efficiently by like a few people who have pretty good data on it. So I was happy to see them rotate the strikes. I feel like for me, I definitely view the announcer mentions heavily data wise, like, but I would caveat that in saying like probably half the strikes I just avoid, because I know you need to go granular into the data with some of them, like next gen stats. Like I got burned on that the other day. Did you get burned on that in the Monday Night Football integration?
I did, because
did
it
too.
had never hit in Monday Night Football ever. And then they announced the partnership like an hour before
I
the
had
game,
like
dude.
3K shares, man.
Same, bro. I took a fat L on that.
I dumped at 50 cents, thankfully. But I feel like, for those announcer mentions, I'll avoid half the strikes, because I know it's like I need to do a lot of research I can't just rely on like the data, obviously, because they're very like game dependent, like who the matchup is, whatever. But I do view those more. And I mean, the good thing about announcer mentions is like if you have the time to be able to watch the game, you can get some pretty incredible live fills. I mean, you were joking about it with like roughing the passer, but there's so many examples of things like that. I mean, I had one where I got filled 500 shares roughing the passer now at 2 cents because it was such a liquid book. Like,
that was insane. I love those kinds of strikes too, where like, or like one-handed, for example, right? Like, because a lot of times an announcer will say one hand, they'll say one hands, they'll say all different variations of one hand, and someone may be like a little, over eager and like snipe the book, and you can get a crazy fill. Well, I was telling my buddy about, a lot of times when I do these NFL announcer markets, so I'll do it on my, TV in the living room, and I've got two, young kids running around, and they're just like making noise, being wild. And I'm like, guys, like, be quiet. I'm trying to hear. I'm trying to,
exactly.
I'm trying to like listen for these small things. And I've like accidentally bought things before, where they were not said. And then I'm like sweating, for the next 45 minutes, hoping it hits. If you trade, it's optimal to not do it with your kids screaming.
100%. Yeah. I'd say my favorite ever trade that I did for like $200 on an NFL announcer mention, but I felt like such a genius afterwards, was they were doing it like a 30-40 yard or like a 40-yard field goal. So there's a good chance it was gonna be no good. Obviously, I know you're familiar. Like they're not always gonna say no good, but if they miss a field goal, fair value is probably like 85, So there was like 500 shares sitting in the book at like 50 cents. And I pulled up the money line for the game to get the lowest latency determination, because obviously money line's going to move based off if it's good or not. And as soon as I saw money line move, I sniped the 500, and then they're like, it's no good. And I'm like, I'm so smart. Like,
dude, what a play. What a play.
Like, this is what it takes.
But that's like one of the really fun things about prediction markets, right? Is like you can find the coolest little edges if you just like use your brain, put in the work, right? Like there may be correlations to things that like nobody has identified before, and you're able to make that connection in your mind, and then you can take advantage of that, right? Like at the end of the day, prediction markets really are just like monetization of information, right? So like the faster you have the information, the better you are at deciphering that fast, more money you can make in some of these cases. Super, super interesting, right? The rules cases are like great examples of that, right? So like the tax versus taxpayer, or like Obama. What was the Obamacare
did you see,
one? Obamacare, right?
Yeah, that one was. I can't believe I didn't get it. Did you see Venezuelan today?
Yeah, that was another.
I got 500 at 20 cents, like right when that.
What a fill!
Like on the
My fill wasn't as good. I got it in like the 60s, but I still got like 800 shares or something of it, which was great.
It's crazy because I was thinking about it in the moment and I hesitated. If I had put like 1,000 at 6 cents, I probably could have gotten the initial fill from someone trying to. But yeah, just spots like that to where you can know there's a really high likelihood he's going to say Venezuelan instead of Venezuela. It's like so definitely live trading can be very profitable. But again, you're taking the risk there that he's going to say Venezuela, and you're going to get bonded before you can pull the
100%, but in like all these strategies, kind of like the way I look at things is like, you're going to take L's, right? That's just like part of the game. You just have to like say, okay, is this strategy going to make more money then it's going to lose, right? Like over
Yeah.
time, if the strategy is making money, you're plus EV, right? That's an
Right.
edge. So it's like worth it to continue to press an edge. And like, I see like the people are always debating like, oh, the mention markets versus meme coins or prediction markets, whatever.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it's a dumb comparison, because like that stuff, like a lot of that stuff in crypto is about being early, right? Like prediction markets are about being right and like understanding fair value. And, if you can understand fair value and really get that, you can repeat the edge over and over and over and over and over. It's really hard to
Yeah.
repeat an edge in meme coins unless you're like insider trading or you have some kind of like sophisticated
Yeah.
like tooling that nobody else has, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a much more level playing field.
I think too on meme coins, like I've never traded meme coins or really crypto in general, but I also feel like it's like to your point on like repeatability and also like to me it'd feel hard to be able to distinguish, did I get lucky or was this like a long-term profitable trade buying
Yeah.
XYZ coin? And then also it's just like, how would I systematically like price a token? It's just
Well,
so
there's no intrinsic value to it, right? Like when
yeah,
you're talking about like these altcoins, meme coins, whatever, right? Like it's basically just like playing a hot potato game with a bag of shit. And like whoever
yeah,
gets caught with it last, right,
yeah,
gets rinsed. Versus like a prediction market, like if I buy a contract, there's intrinsic value to the contract, regardless of the up
right,
down of the price, right? Like so it's just it's not like even it's just a completely different game that
yeah.
I think it's way more fun. And
Oh yeah,
it like the
and
things that
mentally
you
stimulating.
how much have you learned trading these markets? Like I've learned
Yeah,
so many things about like grammar and just the world in general that I never would have thought about or done if I wasn't into these markets. So I think that's one of the big attractions of it. And because it's so broad, you have such a huge like target audience, right? And that's why I
right.
think these things are just going to keep growing and growing. Uh, I think the Goldilocks period is going to be for a little while. It's not like crypto in the sense of where there's like some kind of like contagion event that can just like crash the entire
Right. Yeah.
market. The real risk for prediction markets are regulators,
Right.
more
Yeah.
than anything. Or us
Well,
just being so badly behaved that society calls us degenerates and
I'll
writes us
take
off.
that. Yeah, man. Telling people that I trade mention, it's always I just say prediction markets, or event contracts. That's way it's way better.
Yeah.
But the one thing you touched on was like earlier, like that there's all these probably like correlations that people haven't even uncovered yet on like markets, and I just think that's a very great point of like just changing how people maybe should think about like trading on a prediction market, because I feel like very frequently people will just have this view of like, to succeed on prediction markets you have to be able to pick the outcome, right, of a yes or
Yeah.
no, like uh and I've probably somewhat encouraged that a little bit, because like on the content side it's going to be boring if I'm like arbitraging to, you know what I mean, like it's
Yeah.
uh but for me, historically, like I have never liked being directionally like exposed to one side. Like what I mostly have always done is like just arbitraging either correlated markets, different exchanges. So I think like that's just a good point for people to think about. And also like what I love the most about prediction markets is it's just like they encourage you to just try to be as clever as possible in like
Yeah.
finding certain edges. And that's why like even when I think about things drying up, like if you look at sports, for example, that are some of the most deep liquidity, high volume, markets, like I can personally attest like the edges that I've found, even in these super deep markets, just by being very clever and like thinking about how maybe correlated markets in sports, like it's, you know, yeah, it's crazy and it's very fun, and like you said, like it's very stimulating. You just learn a ton, with whatever market you're kind of trading.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like traders think more through that lens, right? Of like correlations and hedges and like trying to like minimize like drawdowns and capital versus like a lot of like retail, like your average guy, he's just coming in there and he's like, dude, I like the Bears. Like I'm buying the
Yeah,
Bears,
yeah,
and like you kind of have to, if you want to be long-term profitable with these things, like you really have to start thinking in the sense of like, what is like objectively the fair value of something here? And like, if it's not at what the fair value is, then like you have an edge there. That's all
Yeah.
percentage points that should be, in theory, profit, right? Because eventually the book will correct to the fair value. And in like the higher liquidity markets, you see those happening a lot faster than in like some of these more fringe markets, like
Right.
mentions, for example. But like all that inefficiency adds to the profits that you can make, and makes those markets a lot more attractive. So yeah, it's super interesting, kind of just how to work your brain on these things. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
Trump bombs, or he doesn't bomb Venezuela, like he goes in there and ganks Maduro. Like, what are all the correlated things to this event happening, right? So like, how does that
Yeah.
affect China invading Taiwan? How does that affect US striking Iran? How does that affect the Iranian leader going out of office this
Yeah.
year, right? Like there's all these like other correlations that kind of come into play
And
that
that's
you can
like an
start to think about.
interesting point, because like even with like Trump mentions in terms of like kind of viewing them differently, very rarely nowadays am I even focused on like a strike by strike when I think about Trump. It's much more so, is this going to be like a yap fest? Is there going to be room for him in the sense of like, what's the speech going to look like? And then if
Yeah.
I'm live trading something, it's less so that something's going to happen to make me think he's going to say Maduro or something. And it's much more, oh, this thing happened, therefore I got to buy as many no's as I can before price is correct. Or this thing happened, I got to just load up on yeses across the board. Yeah, and I just see that happening to me more and more as I trade. Less so announcer mentions, because those it is more strike sensitive, but like Trump and things like that, it's I less am looking at them as in this word is like something I'm focused on, and more so just, is
Yeah.
this a yes fest or a no sweep?
And then thinking about it in phases, right? So like, for, let's say this is an announcement about pharmaceutical drugs, right? So like, okay, what's going to happen during the prepared remarks phase? Like, what's likely to hit here, and like,
Right.
how long is this going to be? And then Q&A, like what could potentially hit in this section, right? Because
Yeah.
they're like two very like distinct things to like bet on, right? Because there also may be a situation where, let's say they drop the Epstein files an hour before and he's doing this pharma announcement. He's not going to really take Q&A today, right? Because like
Yeah.
there's a lot of like hot stuff he's reacting to, versus a day where he's like max bravado. He's going to be taking Q&A and like yapping a lot, right? So just kind of like understanding these different segments, and then the current events, right? And it touches back to what we talked about like Trump just being so vibes heavy, because like it
Yeah. Yeah.
changes by the minute, dude. Like, remember the Zelensky bilateral that happened early last year, where he like threw the
Where he was like, I
Zelensky
have
out?
the cards. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing, right? Because like that was looking like it was going to be a typical yes fest yap, right? And then all of a sudden, like the cards turned like that, and all of a sudden, like you had to react to things
Right.
really quickly, or else you got wrecked.
Yeah, and I like that point you brought up about the phases of speeches as well, because in terms of like thinking about strikes, because something frequently I'll find is like, there are a lot of words that you'll see pre-speech that would only come up in Q&A, yet the price will still move if it's not said in the open. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah,
it's just very inefficient.
yeah,
So, I mean, it's probably, honestly, for Trump speeches, it's probably a profitable long-term strategy to just wait till the open ends and just buy every single unsaid yes at limit. Like,
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah, well,
Um,
and like the market's overreacting in a lot of these
yeah,
cases, right? Like we were talking about the open close press, like FUD, right? Like that, there was so many crazy overreactions, and like it was just at a certain point when like, and I talk about this, like if the price gets like so egregious, like you have to buy the other side. It just
yeah,
becomes like you're forcing me to do it, even if I like don't like this trade, like
yeah,
the price, I like the price, so I'm
yeah,
gonna have to do it. It's one of those kind of things. Like I was even like looking at this like Logan Paul auction, earlier, and I was like, I was almost like convincing myself to like lotto a bracket that maybe I shouldn't, because I'm like, dude, like really, is
Was
that
that
like
the fight, or which one was that? Or that's oh,
the this Pokemon auction that's
oh,
going
okay,
down.
okay,
So
okay.
there's one for the Illustrator card, and then there's one for the Charizard card. and like the pricing on these strikes is just like, it's crazy when you compare it to like recent Charizard sales. Like it's like way, way, way higher. And so you're kind of like thinking about it and you're like, who's the buyer for this, right? Like it's got to be somebody who's, you know, like a millennial who has huge amounts of disposable income and is also willing to pay a crazy Logan Paul premium on a card, because these like all in the recent past have sold for like 150 to, you know, max 300K. There's one really weird sale that happened 3 days ago for $500,000, which is kind of like odd. 3 days before this auction, all of a sudden this massive sale happens. I've traded NFTs long enough to smell bullshit. Like, you know, it just is weird. So yeah, I was like almost talking myself into like lottoing like a low priced auction, because I think a lot of the money's going to flow to the Illustrator and not to the Charizard. But who knows? You know, these games may not all be.
I do feel like,
you know?
On something like that, like a random card game for the Logan Paul thing, like what I've realized, what I've come to find is like our earlier point was like staying in your lane, whether it's mentions, whatever your category is. But I will caveat that with anytime there is a market that just gets mass cultural appeal and becomes like front page and is just suddenly, you have to get involved. Like that's just my opinion now. Like the Jake Paul fight may have been one of the craziest nights. It's up there for me trading on Kalshi. Like, I mean, because you know you have the flow of all these new users coming in, and it just was like the markets, the non-main market on just like who's gonna win the fight. Like all the alternate were just so crazy. I mean, it was like, so I do feel like now, you know, anytime there's a big market, that becomes front page, like Times personally, or it's just things like that. Like I'm gonna get involved, because I feel, turkey pardon. You know what's hilarious is Ben reposted like the clip from when I had that on the stream, and it was like, oh, I made $300 with the information I had at the time. I was saying I literally should have had $10,000 on Gobble.
You had it. Your thesis was banging, dude. Like you were so on point.
It wasn't even a thesis. It was like I knew it was Gobble. Like it was basically announced beforehand, and it's like I could have gotten probably 10K at 80 if I just kept.
And that's what I was about to say is like how like inefficient was the pricing on that, and kind of like this touches back to like what we were talking about earlier about like the more fringe an event is and like the less data, less solved it is, the more inefficient a book is going to be, right? 100%. So like that's like all kind of like just slop that you can take advantage of, right? And that's like why I totally agree with you. Like when you're on these like big, huge flash markets like that, you've got to like jump in and get some action, because there's just so much liquidity and they're hard as hell to handicap, right? Like in general. So like you're gonna have people who are just straight up wrong, just, you know, dumping money on the wrong thing.
Exactly. And like, I mean, that's on like Jake Paul, where it was just like, I was getting just things that were just like wrong getting filled. And I think what I struggle with is like on that Gobble Waddle one, for example, is the stupider it gets and harder to handicap, because you can't be as quantitative, right? It's like hard for me to convince myself to size up. So that's something like, you know, with Trump, I've had to learn in the sense of being more vibes heavy and like get comfortable relying on that rather than data. Like announcer mentions, I will easily have $10,000 on any NFL announcer mention, because it's to me, a lot of them, a few strikes this doesn't apply to, but for a significant amount of strikes, it's kind of just same old. Of course, adjusting for days and things like that. But so it's like I will feel comfortable saying, okay, I'm getting XYZ in expected value. If I lose 3K here, I'm not going to be upset. It's like I just got to run in the mill. But with Trump, things like that, that's why looking at people like Moonlight and stuff that are like punting 10K on
insane.
Trump.
I mean, dude, he's an absolute Chad. Like Moonlight, like he's super smart, like just sharp at these markets. But two, like he has a very, very good skill at scaling his bet sizing with his bankroll. Like I'm incredibly impressed. I don't know if it's just like him and I are at like different points in our life. You know, he's a lot younger than I am and doesn't have kids and stuff. Where like I feel it when I'm putting 10K on the line. Like that's a lot of money, dude. versus Moonlight's just like, bro, fuck it, dude. I'm dumping 10K on the Gavin Newsom interview. You know what I mean? And like, he's just like, he has this like fearlessness that I'm just like,
it's funny
I'm
because
really impressed. It's confidence. Like, I'm really impressed with him. Really sharp
I mean,
guy.
you realize that he's doing the right thing. And I know you read, like, in terms of how he's sizing up. And I actually, so I interviewed him back when he had hit 30K. And that was in like a month.
That's like a month ago. That was like a month ago.
I know.
This guy's insane.
It's crazy. But it was like 1K to 30K. And he made it in like a month. And I remember even then when I was talking to him, basically, I was saying then that he was like still being able to size up going from 1K to 30K. And I was shocked that he was like comfortable putting 5K on something where, you know, Kelly would probably more than agree with you. And now he's at 150K and he's still not struggling. Like, he put 20K on the Jake Paul fight. Like, you know, so it is crazy to see. And that's hopefully what I'm going to be in 2026. You know, that's my goal, is just to like get comfortable sizing up in all those spots. Cause, you know, every time you miss them, you're just like, man. Do you feel like you're still undersizing kind of chronically?
Okay, I'm undersizing big time, like compared to like where my bankroll is, and like you know, that's where I see, you know, Moonlight, and I'm really impressed with him. And today, like, because him and I make like so many of the same trades, like, you know, it's like funny because I feel like whenever I DM him and I are like always on the same side of something. It's kind of like funny, and I like, dude, this guy is just better at managing his bankroll and sizing than I am, and I'm like, dude, I got to learn from this and like start having some cojones, you know. Like, I've clearly proven I have an edge. It's just about having the confidence and putting the sack down, and like, you know, hey, you know, you again, this game, you're going to take losses. It's just all about long term. Do you know, is your edge there? And I'm confident in that. So I'm like, dude, I got to sack up, start sizing up more, dude, and start catching my boy up there.
Our goals for 2026, and you know, part of that for me is doing these weekly updates that I always do and stuff like that, and like having it be tied in with the content. It creates this pressure to where I'm like wanting to be risk averse, because I feel confident like I could easily crank out 3K plus a month if I'm just doing small, you know, versus taking on higher variance but having much larger, you know, overall gains. So 2026, I'm probably gonna private my account, and then I'll once a month I'll like, you know, unpublic it. That way I can just like go for it and be willing to throw 10K on, you know, big events.
Yeah, and like, you know, there's all kinds of like external pressures like you're talking about when you're on a public account, right? And then like just people will like copy trade, and they do all kinds of other things that just, you know, maybe you just don't want, you know, going on. That's part of why I try to keep things like overall private. I used to be like really like open with everything I was trading. I would like post like a full thesis of like why I thought it was a good pick and this and that. And I've like over time kind of like wanted to protect like my informational edge, and been like, okay, like let's like hold this here to the chest, and I'm gonna try to like accumulate as much as I can. And I don't mind talking about markets where I've already like accumulated my position and I've hit my risk limit. Like I'll talk anything about that, but like otherwise I kind of try to keep, you know, the information to myself. But like, you know, there's certain things that I think are helpful that you can share to the community. Like, for example, I was sharing earlier today kind of like my thoughts on pre-recorded events versus like live events, right? Because they're like very two different things to trade. There's like different kind of risks that you have to keep in mind on both of them. And, you know, I like sharing that kind of stuff. And that's part of why I wanted to get back into streaming, just seeing, you know, guys like you and Easy and a lot of folks out there, you know, doing some, you know, good prediction market content. And I was like, man, you know, I think doing something like once a week could be a cool, you know, little way to get back into it and share some of my thoughts on markets. And there's a lot of sharp folks, man, that will come on and just, you know, share information and speak that I found like really valuable from all these streams. So I like it.
Yeah, no, definitely 100%. I mean, goals 2026, you know, definitely size up. Do you have a number you've thought about for 2026 that you want to target?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like trying to like I'm trying not to think about it in like such a large. Sorry, the buds are going off.
Oh, no worries.
The mailman just The mailman just came through, dude. I got 3 boxers, dude, that love to bark.
Oh man, no. I want to get a dog soon. I can't get a cat.
Oh, dude, I've got all that. But yeah, just kind of thinking about this year, I'm kind of trying to approach it on like a day-to-day basis, right? Like,
Yeah.
make $1,000 to $2,000 a day, like just and do that over and over and over, and that's gonna reap rewards in the end. I've actually found that like to be like a very attainable goal, to be honest, because
Yeah.
that's what I've been really focusing on like during December, and I had my best month, was like up 50K or a little bit more than that in December. Was a really awesome month. And I think like liquidity will continue to improve,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's where like I may be being conservative, with like that
Yeah.
goal, because I think like it's all about the more volume you can get, right? Like, so
Yeah.
if you're a profitable trader and you have an edge, profit is just like a direct function of volume, right?
Right.
So you're like, I want to like get as much down as I can on as many markets as possible,
Yeah.
to try to maximize that. That's something I've
Yeah.
been poor about in the past too, is like bankroll efficiency, right? So like understanding like you want to have as much capital working at a time as possible versus having it sit idle, in your account,
For
just
sure.
doing nothing.
That was for like at least a month. Me, I had it idle, and then like a week ago, I just started bonding mentions like very frequently, and I'm like, why am I not putting $80,000 on all these bonds frequently? It's like just dependent on how fast they resolve markets. So it's like,
Totally, dude. I got close, man. I was literally like running out of money this morning because I had so much down from over the holidays. I was like,
yeah,
dude, if I don't get some resolutions this morning, I'm not bidding shit today. Like,
yeah, it's a good feeling.
Yeah, thankfully they came in and were like resolving a bunch, in the morning. I'm on the West Coast, so I like, have a little bit more time than you guys on the East Coast. But yeah, like it's just like a crazy, amount of liquidity growth. And I think one of the things that's great about mentions too, I think about prediction markets like in kind of like two kinds of markets. You have like really long-term markets, like low
Right.
repeatability, long resolutions. Then you have like quick resolution markets. They're highly repeatable, like mentions, right? Like we could go
Yeah.
today, we had 2 Zoran events, dude. And then we've got like how many other things going on, right? Like,
Yeah.
so like you could repeat your edge like very, very frequently. Even if your liquidity like isn't great for like one single event,
Right.
you could still
Yeah.
repeat that so freaking many times that like it's a good lane to be in. You can start to like really compound your profits and get a lot of volume in versus
Yeah.
like something like the presidential election runner. I have to be like one extremely highly like conviction, like have high conviction in one side, right? And then I have to put like a significant amount of money on that one thing. And if I'm wrong, I'm like really, really wrong. Like I just wasted like the last 6 months on this trade.
Right.
It failed. So that's like a big like hit to take versus like I could lose $2,000 on a mention market. Whatever, dude. I'm gonna just like make it back on the next one.
Yeah.
Like and that next one will be in 2 hours,
And I think that's a great point of just like the repeatability with mentions as well. That's why, I think we were talking about this off stream, but like we're looking at NBA announcer markets. I think we don't have the best data on them now, but it's like putting in the effort to get a good edge in NFL announcer mentions. It's like that's a full season thing. And it's just like every time there's an announcer mention, I know I'm gonna like over the long period of time, like make there. I mean, there were weeks where it was just like I feel like I could have just sat there, done nothing, and put like 10K on each NFL announcer market, and I probably in EV would have made at least 3K just on that alone. Like, so whenever I'm thinking about mentions, because also like people will constantly ask me like, oh, are you playing this random one-off like thing? And it's just like, I'm like, no, I'm gonna have to invest like 4, maybe 3 hours of time on this specific event to like, it's like I would much rather do a Trump mention that it's like every time I watch Trump, I'm building up more intuition, more knowledge on like, and same thing with NFL. So I just think that's a great point on like the benefit of something like mentions that are daily. And then, you look at other people like Gayton, Grande, like these other people that have edges like music, it's like there's always going to be a Spotify chart. It's a weekly thing. So it's the same thing where if you find something where you can have like a long-term edge.
Those two guys are really good traders. And like, it's impressive because they've like invested time in doing the research, having the models to build the edge. And they're in their lane and they're crushing it. They're like perfect examples of what you're talking about, forming a niche, getting like really, really good at that niche and just hammering it.
Yeah.
Everybody's an expert in something, dude. It's like even my wife, man, like, I always joke around about the wifey alpha, but like, I'm literally like before Survivor, I'm like consulting with her on, hey, who you think is, going to be the winner or not, or who's getting
But like
voted
that
out.
Survivor market, I actually heard from like some people who knew it really well that was just insanely mispriced. Like it should have been probably 95 for the winner. And
Yeah.
it sat there with thousands in liquidity at 80.
It did so much trading, and like, dude, at one point the price on like Rizzo got up to like the 20s, dude. Like, so it was like crazy price. It got to a point where it was like, dude, you've got to like start slamming the other side of it,
Yeah. Did you trade Dancing with the Stars at all?
Yes, that was a fun
Dude,
one.
The flow was insane that day.
Insane.
I was trading it live and I was just neg risking the whole thing, and it was just crazy.
Yeah, dude, like the amount of money that was getting dumped. I regret not like taking out like more size on it, because it was one of those things where I was like, dude, you could have just accumulated as much as you wanted, like, and you could arb out where you were risk free.
That's all I was doing. Yeah.
On it. Yeah. Like it was
on days like that. I'm literally like, I really wish I just had a line of credit for like 500K and I could just make 20K market making or arbing this. Like it's the same. Yeah. It's honestly, I feel that way sometimes with sports where it's like, there's a lot of ways where you can get top bid at 99 on like resolved sports outcomes. And people are just going to cash out. And I'm like, dude, if I had $500,000, it's like, this is 5K. Granted, obviously, like you have to be careful because, people will make like going back to like bonding. My advice there would definitely be like, don't ever quote unquote bond something if it's not something you fully understand, obviously. Like, whenever I'm bonding now in mentions because I know mentions, I know what the disputes are. I've been around kind of all the disputes in the last year. Yeah. So if I know when something's gonna resolve, so
and like bonding with like appropriate like risk limits, right? So like I'll see a market, the strike has 10,000 total volume for the market. The bond bid is for $100,000, right? So that's 10x the current like open interest or volume of the market. Like that's just like that's crazy, right? Like theoretically, the max of like that anybody could even cash out to you is half of that amount, right? So like, that's a lot of risk to just sit there, and like that's where some people, this legendary case today or last night on fake news, right, where somebody got rinsed for whatever it was, 50 grand. And by the way, what an insane story that the guy who got rinsed by Foster on a 1 cent thing was the guy who won this trade. What a fucking beast. Like, props to him, dude. Prediction market gods did justice. But like, it's just, you got to be like thoughtful about like the amounts that you're bidding to, right? Like I bond on like a word that's said in a speech that, like, again, I'm a vet, I've done this, but like, I'm not, bonding 50 grand, dude.
Right. And I mean, I've seen on like small college football announcer games, this was like maybe a little over a week ago, someone was bonding in a game with like a total volume of like maybe 25K. They were bonding 40K on college football strikes. And what do you know? And on the ground reporter, in those games where they said the word Heisman, somebody bonded 40K. You got rinsed 40K. And it's like, you maybe would have gotten filled 5K shares even at, so you're just offering, it makes no sense. I just wonder who that is.
No. Yeah. I don't know either. I like know folks like us that are doing the same kind of stuff, but I don't know who the person is who is that guy. Maybe like it's all of us just collectively doing it at the same time. And like, we're adding up to this value collectively without even realizing it. I don't think it's that, but like, it's very odd. I'm not sure. That's one of these things about like these markets, man, is still overall, it's really like a fairly small amount of like really big whales that are trading these things, right? Like whenever I see like, if I see a bid wall for like 5,000 shares of something at like a substantial price, like there's only a handful of folks out there that
Cereal, Foster, Duck, Moonlight, Azul or like,
100%, dude. You start running through the list, and you're going, okay, like
yeah,
I have a significantly sharp counterparty on this trade. Who the fuck is
yeah,
it, right?
yeah,
Like, and you can kind of start to infer. One of the fun things, like I read Billy Walters' book a couple of years ago, and he's like one of the most profitable gamblers of all time. Super sharp guy. I would highly recommend reading his book or listening to his podcast with Rogan that he did. It was great. But like, yeah, he would talk about how like basically he knew like whenever there was like any kind of just bullshit going on with like a line, or like a player was like rigging a game or whatever, because like the action was like really apparent if a big player was going in and putting down a substantial amount of size. Like there was only a handful
yeah,
of people it could really be. And that's in the sports betting world, right? Where like there
yeah.
was way more liquidity being thrown around. Sure, this was decades ago, right? For Billy Walters, but still you get the idea. Like it's just kind
But
of interesting, the
also
parallels that you can, draw between the two things.
sometimes like on that point, because it is hard where I take a step back when I feel conviction on something, but like you said, I see a 5K bid wall on a Trump speech because I'm like, there's only a couple of people that could be doing this, but like sometimes they get so big that like the big Trump announcement that he gave 2 weeks ago, where everybody thought it was going to be about Venezuela. Like the
Yes.
fact that you could have gotten so much size on no Maduro at like 25. I mean, I had already entered into that, or we were talking about it. I remember that day.
Yeah, we were
Like you know
questioning
what?
our thesis. Yeah, because we were
Yes,
like, dude, we're getting filled for so much volume that like
yes,
I'm starting to second guess myself. Yeah.
yeah. And it got to 25, and I'm like, I could get
Yeah.
probably 5K easily at 25, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but it turns out no sharps were on Maduro. Yes, or I
Yep.
didn't know of any. So it just
Yeah.
was some people who must have came into it with the announcement being big, and they just kind of didn't understand it or didn't, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you see like these weird, like one of the interesting things about the times we live in, right, is like this, like the social media, like just uh fake news. I don't know another way to put it, that like goes
yeah,
around, right? And like it happens on the left, it happens on the right, and like there's like hysteria that kind of gets produced in pricing. It like affects prediction markets. Like sometimes I'm really
yeah,
convinced that the Venezuela Maduro price was like fully fueled by just like media hysteria, right?
yeah.
Like
Tucker
because there
Carlson,
was no reason. Like if you thought about it
yeah,
rationally, it's like Trump is not going to come up here on a primetime address at the middle of Survivor and declare war on Venezuela. Like that's just like right before the holiday. Like that's just like not going to happen. But
yeah,
everybody was like convinced themselves because like Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones told them like war was being declared. So it was just kind of like an interesting, weird, like media inefficiency.
yeah.
Hey, but sometimes that news is really good. Like one of my first prediction market trades was I was fading the Biden dropout. I didn't think Biden
Oh,
was going to
yeah.
drop out. And Mark Halperin, really good reporter, he went on like it was the Friday before the dropout, and he said Biden's dropping out on Sunday. It's a done deal. It's over. And I was like, what? No way. This isn't true. And sure enough, he dropped out on Sunday.
Yeah.
I
I
lost on that
remember
trade.
that tweet. I remember where I was when I saw that. And I remember because I had just gotten into prediction markets maybe a month before. And at that time, I was literally telling, or maybe like 2 weeks before, I think I got in like right before the Biden dropout. And at that time, I was telling literally everyone I knew about prediction markets because I was just so obsessed. I was like, how can you guys not think this is the coolest thing in the world? And like, I just remember, yeah, seeing that Twitter post and I was like, oh, it's all happening.
Yeah.
Because at the time I think I was like arbing Biden dropout with him being the DNC nominee and like, yeah, crazy times. Like it's just crazy. Like we were saying off, before we were live, like seeing where prediction markets have come now to like it's just crazy how big, like zooming out even 4 months. They're
Yeah.
just they've gone so parabolic. I don't think anyone expected this, and it was so sudden.
I mean, like people were kind of like, I think, laughing at me when I was like towards the end of the election season saying like prediction markets are just going to keep growing. There's not going to be this like death valley like there was after the last election cycle, just because they hit this level in the zeitgeist that they hadn't hit previously, right?
Yeah.
And like I was like, yeah, there's going to be like a little drop in volume, but like it's not going to be the same, death, valley it was. And then the thing I didn't expect was sports to be like the catalyst that took it to the volume that it did, and it to happen so fast. I thought, oh, okay, there will be some growth in sports over this year. Not like what it's been. This has been insane,
Yeah.
dude. Just the
Yeah.
volume numbers have been parabolic, and all the trickle down effects from that, right? Because like sports guys don't come in and they don't just do sports. They bet on Dancing with the Stars, and they bet on mentions, and they bet on like whatever else, right? So like it's a very sticky product once people get into the ecosystem, and you start winning. Yeah, man, I'm just like really bullish on the future of these things. It's been insane, dude. What a year.
Yeah.
2026 is gonna be crazy, dude. We just got to hold ourselves to our goals, dude. Scale our bankrolls, hit
Yeah.
our daily profit goals.
All right, you said day by day, but you didn't give
Yeah.
me a number. So annual, here's what Tiriel's number is: 500K. I know that's what you're thinking.
That would be a very solid year. And it's if I like would have said that probably at the start of 2025, I probably would have like laughed,
Yeah.
So it would have been like the liquidity doesn't even exist for that to happen.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's that like insane.
I guess on that point, I'm curious. Like you've definitely thought about it, but you have stayed almost 100% mentions. Like how close have you come to like venturing in, and is it something you're still actively thinking about venturing to other categories? And if so, are there any that like you specifically were looking at?
Yeah, so like sports is kind of like interesting to me, and in culture. I think there's like a lot of interesting things with like live trading sports that I haven't really looked at. A lot of the sports stuff I've done to date is just like screwing around sports gambling, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
I like Arsenal or Chelsea, and I'm gonna bet on them. But I think there's a lot of like volatility within sports games that like you could take advantage of as a trader. And if you think about it, there's such high amounts of liquidity. You can get down volumes that you could never really get on any other category, right?
Yeah.
So it's like really interesting. And because the timelines are so compressed, you're talking about something that's like highly repeatable if you can become good at live trading them. And I've seen a lot of folks like, I think Foster is like a guy who like I don't know him all that well personally, but like I don't think it's because he's like the biggest basketball expert in the world. I think he's a really good trader, and I think Foster understands how to trade, and like that's like where he's able to kind of like execute those strategies on volatility. Culture is really interesting to me too, just because like what we talked about like further in the fringes you get, the harder this shit gets to price, and like the more like weird inefficiencies you can get. So like just looking at things like this, like Logan Paul auction, or survivor markets and stuff like that, I think are super interesting. I need to get a little bit more out of my my lane, but I'll be honest, like the amount of time I'm putting into the mentions now is like really substantial, between like the actual live trading of them, and then like working on data, like the research, like building tools to help facilitate the trading. Like that's like it's like a full-time
on that
thing,
part. Do you use any third-party like software, and or are you building it all yourself? Do you come from a software background? Are you vibe coding it?
Yeah, so doing it all myself. Like I don't come from a software background, but I previously had a startup in the crypto industry where we were doing NFT gaming, and we had like a game called Crypto Raiders. There's like a fully functioning, like Unity game, right? So had a team of engineers, so got some exposure to kind of how all that kind of stuff works. And then my business partner and I still have a couple engineers that work with us on building various tools, and we do trading collaboratively as well as like independent trading with Kicks. Pretty sure you know from Twitter. And so like it's a little bit of a mix of things, but I everything is in-house built. Don't use anything third party. And like what's really cool about that is like I'm able to get like whatever weird thing I want, right? Versus
I always say it too, is it's like you probably have had it happen to where like a million people reach out saying like we're trying to build a tool for prediction markets, like, or I don't know, like I really feel like the best tool is always going to be built from someone like if you're great at programming, but you don't trade prediction markets versus someone who's great at trading prediction markets, knows where to find edges, but they don't know programming, like whatever piece of shit that they vibe code is going to be better than the alternative just because. And I think if people ever wanted to get into vibe coding, there's almost no better use than vibe coding tools.
Yeah.
For prediction markets. Like it's still in the stage where it's like easy mode to where like you can literally think of something that might give you an edge and it will probably work. Like I talked about it, how like 6 months ago, I vibe coded like an earthquake alert bot and I was literally getting money sniping earthquakes happening. And it was just like the stupidest.
Dude, isn't it funny that like everybody has their flirtation with weather or like climate markets at some point? Like at one point I was like trying to vibe code up like a weather model, dude, to try to like do the highest temp markets.
I've signed off weather, dude.
I quit, dude. I was like, dude, these guys that I'm competing against are just they're way sharper than me at this.
Yes.
I was like, for me to develop a really good model here is going to take me more time. Like how much more money do I need to lose before I'm gonna figure that one out, you know? So I quit. But yeah, dude, like vibe coding is like incredibly, like coding anything is incredibly easy now. Download Cursor, download like Claude Code. You know, it's going to cost you like $20-25 a month, whatever it is. And you're going to have like the world at your fingertips. And you can do whatever little weird thing.
I'm a Cursor guy personally.
Cursor, I use Cursor. My buddies like Claude Code a lot more. I don't know. I still am in the Cursor camp. But yeah, man, like just get out there, try things. You're going to be able to like build good tools on your own. I think a great example is like the RFQ thing, right? Like I think a lot of people thought like, oh, this is going to be like way too sophisticated for anybody like institutional market makers to do. Well, like people like you and I have proven that like you can literally vibe code up.
And it's not that competitive. That's crazy too.
It's not like, and you can get it going and you can get fills. Like, like being good at market making is a lot harder than what people will tell you. People like to tell you like, oh yeah, the market makers, blah, blah, blah. Dude, to price quote some of this stuff accurately isn't as easy as you might think. But yeah, like it's accessible, dude. Like build your own tools. I see some people coming out with like trading terminals and things like this. Like sometime in 2026, I'd like to build my own like trading terminal just because like I'm not a real big fan of the UIs. And I think like there's a way that you can, utilize like bots in conjunction with your own UI that makes like your trading a lot more powerful. But like
I would pay money if there was something that would make it so I literally did not have to click review first before placing trades. Like that
would shave how much time.
Yeah. Like
huge. Seconds is huge, or just like I can't tell you how many times I've like bought the wrong side of something because like I clicked or whatever small little thing. Like all these little like things matter a lot, right? I've thought about like releasing like, for example, like a version of my own like mentions tool like to the public. And I was like really considering it like late like last year. And then I was like, I just can't like, why would I do that and just give up my edge? You know what I mean? Like, so I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go do the work and put it together your own, but like, that's where I was with it. And like that's how I feel about like a lot of these like vibe coding bots and things that people are trying to sell on Twitter. It's like, this is either bullshit or like you're just dumb, because why would you give up an edge? Like if, you had it, like, would you just put the money with it? Like, it just doesn't even make sense. It feels like a Fugazi. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's, and some of the stuff going around on Twitter, it's just, you see it, you're just, I don't engage. I don't, just scroll on by. Well, look, we're coming up on an hour. I know we have some other mentions coming up today, so I'll let you go, but Tyriel, really appreciate you coming on. Excited to see how you track against your 500K goal that you explicitly said here publicly for the world to see. I'm between 200K, I'll be happy. 500K, I'll be thrilled in the upcoming year.
I
Let's
love
see.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Dude, it's been great chatting with you, man. We should do this again. Dude,
Definitely.
you're right around the corner here on the 100K goal, man. It's awesome that we both got to do this like on the same week. It's like,
I know it's kind of crazy.
it's so fun, man, because I feel like we like started our journey in prediction markets like at such a similar time. So
Yeah.
dude, we're gonna
Meant to
crush it in
be.
2026, man. Let's get after it. I think all of us can find some success here.
Let's get after it. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Take care.
Cheers.